A Search in Vedic India, Chapter 6, Karma Yoga. It was 4 in the evening by the time the train reached Kurnool. After coming out of the station, Vimala booked a taxi to Krishnananda Mutt, which is located beyond Bilam Caves. Do we get filter coffee in any nearby hotel? Vimala asked Govind, the cab driver. Although Albert takes black coffee while in the US, she notices that he liked filter coffee in India. There is an Udupi restaurant nearby. We could go there, Govind said, placing both the backpacks in the trunk. In the restaurant, they had a spicy Indian snack and coffee and started again. Vimala was very particular about having only hot food to avoid infections. They left the restaurant around 5 pm, but after about 5 kilometers, the taxi started giving some trouble. Govind got down to check what was going on. He told Vimala that the belt was broken and he would have to get it from Banaganapalli. I changed it recently, don't know how this happened, Govind said with a regretful tone. Okay, go and get it, Vimala said, and she removed 2 items from the backpack and she put them in her handbag. Govind got into a lorry that came his way and left for Banaganapalli, a nearby town. Both Vimala and Albert sat on 2 giant boulders on the roadside. You have not shown any anger against Govind. Why? His failure brought us a lot of inconveniences, isn't it so? Asked Albert. The car failed, and we cannot pinpoint a particular reason. That is why, instead of getting agitated about a failure, the best way is to find the best way out and move forward. The idea is, events happen, deeds are done, there is no individual doer, said Vimala. You said we could not find a particular reason. I did not understand that, said Albert. Now, both of us are sitting here. That is an effect. What is the cause of it? Starting journey at Bangalore. If that is the effect, what is the cause? Your arrival in India to inquire. If that is the effect, what is the cause for it? If you keep analyzing, you will go on until infinity. So, instead of wasting time, the best thing to do is break this cycle and move forward, said Vimala. Is this a concept? Asked Albert. It is the essence of Karma Yoga, as enunciated in Gita, that helps you to live happily in this world, said Vimala. Could you explain the theory a bit more? Asked Albert. It is simple. Do whatever you feel like doing within the framework of law and ethics. Whatever is the result of that action, accept it as a gift from God instead of worrying about the reasons for that result, explained Vimala. Then we have to believe in God? Asked Albert. It is not a belief in a particular God. It is your experience that the results for your actions are not always to your expectations. Sometimes they happen as you expected, and sometimes they do not. It is obvious that they are not in your control. But some higher force, call it God or anything else, is controlling it. By accepting the result and proceeding further, you could save a lot of unnecessary mental worry, said Vimala. What progress would be there if you reconcile with failures? Asked Albert. You have not understood. Accepting is only to stop worrying about what already happened. After accepting the result, you should proceed to do whatever is necessary. Then another cycle starts. Without unnecessarily worrying about any result, we shall accept it, said Albert, trying to assimilate the concept. For accepting the result wholeheartedly, there is another secret, said Vimala. What is it? Asked Albert curiously. We should believe that the action for which we received the result has not been done by us, said Vimala. Not done by us? How is it? Did not understand, said Albert. At the time of taking action, we should do it as if we have full freedom. But at the time of accepting the result, we should believe that we did not have real freedom at the time of performing the activities. God or the higher power prompted the action. Could you give an example? Asked Albert. When we came out of the station, there were 3 taxis. They all came forward and I wanted to select Govind. At that time, I believed that I was doing that act of selecting Govind. But when the car stopped due to some trouble, normally I would blame myself. Why did I select him instead of the other 2? But instead of worrying about that, I accepted the situation and asked Govind to get the part. I just believed that I was not the doer. One thing I did not understand. How can you say that you had not selected Govind when in fact you did select him? Said Albert. There lies the secret. Whenever you take action, how do you do it? First, you would get a thought and you act. Do you act without getting the thought? Asked Vimala. First thought and then action, said Albert. Tell me one thing. Does a thought arise in you or you make an effort and get the thought? Asked Vimala. I think thoughts arise. Some we may get and some not, said Albert hesitantly. Getting them is impossible. Even if you make an effort, unless a thought arises, you cannot do anything. If you observe one thing, it would be clear to you, said Vimala. What is it? Asked Albert. Unless you exist, you cannot get thoughts. The reason for your existence is your inhalation and exhalation. Your inhalation and exhalation, are they happening on their own? Or are you making an effort? They are just occurring even during your sleep. Your involvement is not there. So your involvement is not there in your getting thoughts. Benjamin Libet had conducted experiments on the subject. He proved that the brain initiated action 550 milliseconds before the action began, and the person was aware of the move 200 milliseconds before it occurred. The motor centers of the brain initiated the movements before the person was even aware of it, explained Vimala. It is logical and we may have to accept it, said Albert. That is what happened when I selected Govind. The thought came to select him and I selected. That is why I accepted the result of that action. The same thing must have happened to Govind regarding the checking of the belt. The thought of checking the belt did not come to him. That is why he is not responsible for the car to stop. That is why I could not blame him, said Vimala. From what you are saying, Christ's words come to my mind. While he was being crucified, he said, "They know not what they are doing. Please forgive them, Father." You have explained the scientific logic behind this statement, said Albert. Seeing the fading light, Vimala wondered why Govind did not return. Both of them noticed somebody coming on a scooter. When they came nearer, they noticed that there were 2 people on the scooter. They parked the scooter. One of them came to Albert, and before they saw what was happening, he held Albert's hands, bending them backwards. The other fellow went to Vimala and tried to drag her into the forest adjacent to the road. What happened the next moment was a big surprise to Albert. In a few quick, swift movements, Vimala gave 2 karate strokes to the guy who held her and floored him. When he went unconscious, she came near Albert and sprayed something from a bottle, which she quickly took out from a handbag, on the second guy. She also gave him a few blows and he fell. All this happened in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. Looking at the fellows on the floor, Albert thought that they might revive soon. They will be unconscious for 2 hours, don't worry, said Vimala. You are great, Vimala. Where did you learn this? Asked Albert. A Korean batch of devotees who stayed in the ashram for a month taught me. If you strike aiming particular nerves, it will make them unconscious for 2 hours. Meanwhile, Govind arrived in a lorry. Vimala asked him whether he had any rope in the trunk. Govind said he had a wire, and when he brought it, they tied the 2 guys up tightly. When they started the journey onward in the repaired taxi, Vimala asked Govind to go to the nearest police station. He said there was a police station in 2 kilometers and drove them there. While entering the police station, they asked someone sitting there for the officer in charge. When he indicated a room, they entered the room and wished the officer there. Vimala said that when they were sitting on the roadside, two people attacked them suddenly and one of them attempted to drag her into the forest. The officer looked at Vimala and asked derisively whether both of them were romancing at that spot. Vimala was surprised at his behavior and immediately called a number from her cell phone. She spoke a few words and gave the phone to the officer. The officer listened into the phone, saying yes sir and no sir all the while. After finishing the call, the police official was apologetic. "You could have told me that you knew our sir." Saying this, he came out and called a constable and asked him to escort them till they reached Krishnananda Mutt. Vimala told him about the condition of the thugs and asked him to take care of them. With a constable in the front seat, they resumed the journey to Krishnananda Mutt. Albert, who kept quiet till then, asked, "That spray you used was one of the items you had taken out from your backpack before Govind went. Did you anticipate the incident?" "I did not anticipate this specifically, but keeping in mind the probability, I picked it up along with a small pocket knife," replied Vimala with a smile. "Okay, according to your concept, the deeds are done, but there is no individual doer. The guy who attacked you did not do that, right? Then why did you give him those strokes that made them unconscious?" asked Albert. "You have not understood the concept properly. There was no individual doer when he attacked me, nor when I hit back. You should not separate them and view," replied Vimala with a smile. "How did you know about this concept? Have you read it anywhere? Or has anybody told you?" asked Albert. "I have been questioning Swami and Kalyan Dev about the world, creation and God as you are asking now. They said that I would know all that at an appropriate time. But meanwhile, I should know how to live happily in this world of transactions. Then they taught me this concept, which is based on Karma Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. If this concept is understood and implemented properly, you can come out of anything that doesn't align with your expectations. When I applied the idea, I could overcome many disappointments very easily. I also read Gita, but I could not follow much. Does it mean that you would never feel any disappointment from any happening?" asked Albert. "Not that there wouldn't be any disappointment completely, but we would recover from it very quickly compared to other people who blame themselves for their doings," she said. "I think I should also adopt the concept. It sounds logical and practical." "By the way, whom did you call in the police station?" asked Albert. "Kalyan Dev gave that number. It is the phone number of the police commissioner. Kalyan Dev said that he would inform the commissioner that I would call if necessary," she said. After dropping them at the Krishnananda Mutt, both the constable and Govind left. The Mutt authorities provided 2 rooms to Vimala and Albert based on the letter from Parameswarananda. They were informed that there would be worship of the deity from 5 am and they could talk to Swami Krishnananda after that. They were informed that vegetarian food would be provided in the ashram. Both of them woke up early, got ready, and went to the place where the Swami would do Krishna worship. Unlike sanctum sanctorum of many temples closed on the 3 sides, the place of worship is an elevated platform open on all sides. On the stage, there is a Krishna idol. Swami Krishnananda sat in front of the idol. First, it was bathed with fresh water, then with milk, yogurt, honey, coconut water, fruit pulp, sugar, etc., with chanting of the names of the Lord going on all along by the ashram residents. Then the idol was bathed with fresh water again. After drying it with a clean cloth, the idol was decorated elaborately. After that worship was done by placing flowers for each name of the Lord, a prasad of different sweets, fruits, and cooked food was offered after lighting the incense sticks. Lastly, camphor light was lit and shown to the Lord in circles while a bell rang in a high pitch. After that, the prasad was served to all the present there. Albert never tasted such delicious food anywhere. Since idol worship is a sin in Christianity, for the first time Albert witnessed an idol being worshipped in such a detailed manner. He could not comprehend how an idol could be a god. He made a mental note that he should ask about it later. After the worship, Swamiji arrived at a hall adjacent to the worship place. After reading the letter given by Parameswarananda, Swami inquired about Albert. After providing a few personal details, Albert told Swamiji that he lost his father at a young age, and ever since he had been searching for information in general about what happens after death and where his father could be now. He said he came to India inquiring about this information. What does Christianity say about this? Asked Swami. On the judgment day, Christ resurrects and sends all the dead people either to heaven or to hell. The same person does not retake birth as believed in Hinduism. It may not be possible to say what happened to your father after death or where he is now, because one cannot imagine in which direction one's personality moves after death, said Swamiji. Why is it difficult? Can't mind access that information? Asked Albert. Anything that happens in the world cannot be traced to a single cause. If you trace it back, it will end up in infinity. When we say world, we need not confine to the objective world you see now. Whatever that comes in your imagination, heaven or hell, should be considered also as the world. Let me give an example. In a room, 5 or 6 people are seated in chairs, each holding a stick in his hand. A ball is thrown into the room, and each person hits the ball when it comes to him. This way, the ball takes several hundred hits, and at one time, when a man near the gate hits the ball, it went outside because of the force. Now, could you tell me that the direction in which the ball went was the effect of the last man's hit or the cumulative effect of all the hits? Asked Swami. It should be the cumulative effect of all hits, said Albert. In our example, we just assumed that the hit started at a particular point. But in the actual world, you cannot trace the cause of any effect as it would end in infinity, said Swami. Yes, we discussed it yesterday. In the relative world, we cannot specify only one cause for any effect. If we trace backwards, it will end up in infinity, said Albert. That is why it is tough to project the cumulative effect of all that happened either in this life or previous lives to predict the direction of the departed ones. Swami, I have a doubt in this regard. Somewhere I read that whoever remembers God just before death would not have rebirth and merges in God. In such cases, doesn't the effect of impressions of the past actions function then? By just remembering God at that moment, could one nullify all the impressions? Asked Vimala. Do you think it is that easy to remember God at the time of departure? Most people die without knowing that they are dying. Even if one is alert, unless one neutralizes all the impressions through lifelong devotion and worship of God, one cannot remember God at that moment. That means nothing in the world should draw his attention to get that state. Otherwise, he enters another body, said Swami to Vimala. Addressing Albert, Swami said, just like you Christians believe in Judgment Day, Hindus believe in reincarnation. The explanation for that belief is that if you learn certain computer skills before going to sleep, you will continue from what you have already learned before sleep and you would not start again. Similarly, every person accumulates several impressions through the 5 senses and a personality is formed with those impressions. If one dies with all those impressions, he will take up in another body based on those impressions, explained Swamiji. So, is there no end to that? One continues to have incarnations? Asked Albert. Not really. If one devotes an entire life to the worship of the Lord and dies without any worldly desires, he would reach the abode of Sriman Narayana and stay there as part of Sriman Narayana, said Swami.